Hello and welcome to the Sexient Being Sessions. Today we're here to talk about getting down and dirty in your BDSM and kink relationships, especially where it pertains to resistance and blocks and that mucky, sticky feeling of not being able to move forward, the stagnation. So, if you want to learn some really exquisite ways to play in this space and then move yourself out of it by moving through it, then you're in the right place. I'm Alix Pruett, a certified sex, love, and relationship coach with a BDSM and kink focus. I work with men, women, and couples plus who want to transform their old patterns, pain, and beliefs so they can create thriving relationships that are deeply connected, playful, and fulfilling within themselves and with others. So let's get into this. The resistance, the muck, the stagnation, the mess, like it can leave us feeling so heavy and so dragged down with being able to move forward or know how to get out of it. And I want to bring this frame of focus to a lot of the time we're wanting to get out of it. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard the phrase like, what you resist persists, but that applies so much to the mud and the muck. And so, learning to play in the mud and the muck, moving through the mud and the muck, can help you get to this point of deeper insight, more clarity, even though there's all this mess to get through first. And that's perfectly fine. It's there for a reason, and it's going to help you thrive more in your relationships within your own like fulfillment within your life. So again, let's learn to play with this space. So I can say for me, granted, this doesn't relate specifically to the world of kinky BDSM play, but I bring that into my life on a daily basis, is that I have been stuck in this mud and this muck and resistance for months. And today I was in my own resistance of like, I don't want to get on this call. I don't want to do this thing. I can't. I have no inspiration. Like, I don't know what to talk on to people. And I was like, I feel so stuck in this mud, this muck, this resistance. Like, I don't want to move forward. I don't know how to move forward, even though I do. I have so many tools to get through that. And I just got to sit there and notice what I was stuck in. That first place is noticing that you feel stuck in it at all. And that sparked that inspiration, even in this like last moments before me going on this live call, which I have committed to for myself in doing every single week, is to talk about that resistance, to talk about the muck, to talk about the mud I have felt stuck in, to help others move through what they're experiencing. Now, I'll use meditation, I'll use embodiment practices and all sorts of things to try to get through this, channeling guidance, right? And brainstorming on what I should be doing next, what path I should take. And ultimately, one of the really frustrating parts for me right now has been I keep getting hit with nothing. It's just this blank black wall. When I go to ask for guidance, I go to tap into my system to see what would feel good, what would feel pleasurable. That's all. I'll come across an idea and something in my system goes, no, I don't want to do that. That sounds hard. I don't want to put in the effort for that to not work, right? And that I get myself, again, stuck in this stagnant pattern of doing absolutely nothing, which one of my personal philosophies is that as long as I'm trying, even if I fail, even if something doesn't work out, as long as I'm trying, I'm never actually failing. The only point of failure for me is doing absolutely nothing because then there's no action forward towards what I want to experience, what I want to bring in, what I want to create within the world. So here we are talking about the resistance, talking about the muck, talking about the mud, the stickiness, the stagnation. And I just want you to take a moment. If you're resonating with any of this, and this can be in your personal life, like what you're trying to create, what you're trying to do in the world, within your relationship, right? Within your work, within your family, within being able to go play out in normal life. Like I've definitely hit this in being able to embody play in my normal life, where like I try to do that thing and all of a sudden I just get hit with a wave of exhaustion. But just reflect where you're noticing that in your life today or what's been coming up for you. And just take a minute. Like notice what those thoughts are there. Does it feel heavy? Right? Does it feel like you're literally like stuck in a pool of mud or concrete? Um, it can look so many different ways for different people, and that's kind of what we're getting to unearth in this space. And there's some different techniques that I want to introduce to you here to help you move through that space, to help you get into play. And that first one, it comes back to just noticing that's where you're at and that that's okay. The biggest thing is just noticing. It's a type of mindfulness, it's a type of bringing consciousness to what you're experiencing. Now, the next part is allow yourself to actually feel that. And the next premise I'm going to bring up um, can feel a little bit like, well, that's kind of crazy, but it comes from one of my favorite authors, and she wrote Existential Kink. I can't remember her name off the bat, but it's this idea of taking or like being your own best dom and sub, right? Being your own best sadist and masochist. That if there's something you're feeling, there's something you're experiencing within your being, there is some part of you that really enjoys feeling that. And if you are in the kink and BDSM community and you happen to be watching this, like you may have not applied it in this way, but it's the idea of playing with pleasure and pain. So those same things that create pleasure in our body, that light up as the sensations that tell us this is pleasurable, are usually the exact same sorts of sensation sets that tell us something's uncomfortable, painful, something we should move away from. And it's getting into the idea that there's some part of us that enjoys feeling that discomfort and that we can transition it and we can work with it to create more of the experiences we want to be experiencing rather than just again staying stuck in the mud. All right, so feel into it. Notice what's there and what you want to take away from it. Like it could be carrying a lot of different messages for you. Maybe it's that there's fear underneath that you're gonna fail, but the thing you want, like, isn't acceptable, it isn't understandable, it isn't lovable by anyone else. Maybe it's this like direction away because it's really not for you. And there's no shame in that thing not being for you. That was one of my biggest things when I got into exploring the world of kink and BDSM and the shadow was there were certain things that would like pop up for me to look at, potentially play with as reflections I was getting from other people. And I had to start setting boundaries for myself on what I actually wanted to explore. So, one great example of this was in my personal journey. I had a Dom that I would play with. And in particular, this Dom was great, but he started having these instances where he'd have a more aggressive side come forward. And granted, I don't mind playing with aggressive sides of Doms. Like that can be a lot of fun. But if our alignment is off, like let's say he's wanting to be in his aggressive dom and I just want to be in a service sub mode, then that's not a great match for what's showing up. Because for my service sub, even if I'm doing all the things that this person says they want me to do, and then I'm still receiving punishment for it, it doesn't work great. It's not giving my service sub the validation that she did a good job. So it's learning to play with that space in nuance. Well, as as this evolved, I got to tap into playing with some darker shadowy sides, and that's I will go into archetype work for myself through what are called aspecting practices or other embodiment practices, so I can try to find understanding for these parts or the deeper like gem or like high value message that they carry. And for me, there was this space in that play where it went a little bit too far past my cliff in many ways. And the relationship ended up becoming very toxic. This partner wasn't open to feedback in those instances. He didn't actually remember that he was going into this aggressive state, which was very interesting to get as a reflection when I am conveying what my experience was. But in that, like, I didn't have to go into working with everything. Like, again, another partner enjoyed more incest based plays. So, and it was based in role playing and everything, but it wasn't my thing. It brought up a lot of ick in my system. And while I don't mind connecting with my icks um, and those points of resistance, like I didn't have to go into playing with it. So if you're really like in this high resistance of like, this is just a no for me, know that that's okay. It is okay for your resistance in being a no to just be your no. And that is a perfectly acceptable answer every single time. You don't have to push into that resistance. You don't have to go play in the mud. If you're finding it something that's not serving you, then you get to assess like how can I play with this in a different way? How can I move through this space rather than trying to just make it go away? Because a lot of the time that sticky, mucky, weighed down feeling, depression, it's a very internal state. And that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but there's something in here to be worked through more than it having to do exactly with the world outside of you. So, what are some of the ways you can get into playing with this? One, if it comes up around like creative blocks, right? Just try doing something else that your system really enjoys. Let's say you're having a creative block around like you really want to bring in a new sort of play between you and your partner. Let's say, I mean, you could be a dom or a sub, but you're really wanting to explore this new avenue of play and you're having all this resistance pop up, like you can't talk to them about it. It's not something they're going to be open to. They're just going to reject you. Um, you have like slight idea of what the thing is you want to explore, but you're not really sure how you would get there and like what your next step would be to be able to get you from point A to, let's say, point M or N, right? There's other steps in between potentially in grading yourself up to being at this point. Let's say you really want to learn impact, right? And you have no experience with impact. Like you could actually cause damage to your partner if you hit them in the wrong place, if you use percussive motions over the kidney area, for instance. And these are things that take a level of education, a level of having conversations with other people, getting a mentor potentially. But in those spaces, like let's say you don't know that you need a mentor, that you can seek out other forms of education. You're just like, I feel like I've hit a wall on what I can do. Well, at that point, bringing yourself out of even thinking about it can be highly valuable. Like, get yourself into some other sort of play, like go to a nature space that you really enjoy, go on a hike, go play in water, um, go rock climbing, whether that's on an actual rock wall or like out in nature or at an indoor rock wall. Do something that takes your mind off of the thing that feels sticky and stagnant. Um, it can help give you a lot of clarity when you're not so hard focused on this thing anymore. And it gives you a little bit of a break. Like all of our systems need these breaks in spaces to be able to come to new insights of clarity. And even in this experience, let's say you're going and climbing the rock wall, and it's something you've done before, like it's something you know you enjoy, but all of a sudden, as you're climbing the rock wall, you realize, well, I wasn't always as good at this as I am right now. First, I had to like go get the shoes to be able to do that. I needed to fall a few times. My hands had to slip. I didn't quite have the strength built up in my system to be able to lift myself from one point to another. And then you can have a little bit more compassion for yourself. You get a value point out of this experience that is completely unrelated for what you want to be accomplishing and what you want to be doing. And then you can give yourself a little bit more grace that like you don't all of a sudden have to be perfect right off the bat. You don't have to be a master at this new thing you want to explore, that it's going to be messy and mucky and muddy along the way, and you can play in that space. And for me, one of the biggest things, and it can be so hard, especially once we become adults, because there seems to be this like underlying belief system that we need to be serious, right? Is bringing your life back to spaces of play, not taking yourself so seriously. Like in play, you can make mistakes, right? You can change the mask you're wearing. You could be the dom, you could be the sub, you could be the doctor, you could be the nurse, you could be the patient, you could be the firefighter, you could be the police officer, you could be the dog, the goat, the horse. Like you can take on an array of different identities. We all do that in our daily lives, and it's finding our identity that is most well meshed with the role we want to be taking on, again, so we can play with it, bringing this conscious level to ourselves of, oh, like I want to play with this role, and maybe it doesn't work out with this role. Maybe you want to explore your impact, and you decide to take on the identity of sorry, I'm thinking of different things that don't necessarily apply impact. A slug. Um, and I mean, in that, the reason slug comes to mind is a slug doesn't have arms. It's not necessarily like jumping and flying and hitting things, but that's just a misaligned role. And that's okay. But taking on a different role, let's say we'll stick with an animal theme of a horse. Like, think of when a horse like whips around its tail. You, the first one that popped to mind earlier was a cat, and I'm like, cats hit things all the time. They'll just go up and bap them, and they've got no shame about it or really concern for what they are bapping most of the time. But in that, like, find the identity, find the role you want to play with to get into that. For me, stepping into this space when I've felt so much resistance to creating content, to leading calls on my own, has really been like, I want to be playful. Like I want to play in the mud. I want to play in the muck. Like I kind of wish I had like a pit full of mud right now so I could actually embody like playing in that and getting all dirty. And honestly, that can be a great way to go about it too. Like go allow yourself to do something where you get gross, where you get dirty, where you get down with those actual sensations, again, in your body, and allow yourself to play with it. Like, allow yourself to make mistakes, for it to not be perfect, for it to be messy, and for you to have fun. Even if you're having fun and going, ew, it's gross and it's fucking messy, like embody that. Like, what feels good in the mess? What feels delicious in the fucking muck? And it can take you leaps and bounds further to connecting in with your inspiration when you're not resisting your resistance, right? That's when you're resisting the resistance, you're just going to amplify it. That is now resistance squared. And how much is that really serving you? I mean, it's serving you on some level. There's a part of you that really doesn't want to be this thing because it's not fun, or you're identifying with it not being fun, not being enjoyable, being painful, being uncomfortable. But that's where we can kind of transform, alchemize, transmute whatever this is into something that is valuable, into something you can play with, and bringing that to your partnerships. Now, one thing that can definitely happen is we end up worrying so much about what everyone else is going to think, especially when we are in these very authentic expressions. When, let's say, everyone else around us is dressed to the nines, right? Let's pretend we're at a fancy schmancy dinner party, and everyone around you at this event is like decked out in amazing garb, and there's sequins and there's fucking diamonds and there's tuxes, and you are also decked out in this garb. But in this garb, like, you feel stiff and you feel rigid and you feel like you have to perform and behave in very certain ways. And they happen to have somebody over doing landscaping recently, and at some point you trip and you fall smack dab into a big mushy puddle mound of dirt. Now, you can sit there and be fucking embarrassed, and by every right, you can be embarrassed. You could have everybody else laughing at you because you just fell on your face in the muck, right? In this mud, in this mess, and now you are not pristine and you are not clean and you are not exactly like the rest of them. And that's okay. You don't have to be. You could fall in that mud puddle, in this mush, in this mound, whatever you want to call it. And even if everybody else in the world at this party, that was your world at this point, is laughing their asses off at you, you can now have fun with it. Like, you don't have to be embarrassed. You can play with your embarrassment in the mud and then get all dirty and just enjoy yourself with that. And I would be shocked in that instance if somebody in the space around you wasn't slightly envious that they weren't rolling around in the mud too, or that you didn't potentially have somebody else go fuck it and rip off some of their layers and go dive in with you. Now maybe they have all their own social conditioning that says, I can't do that thing. Oh, everybody else will laugh at me. I'm embarrassed. Whatever it is. That's okay. You can still enjoy yourself in that process. You can roll around with your embarrassment, with any shame, with any guilt, being a klutz, whatever it is, but play in that muddy mound and enjoy every fucking minute of it. Like, it, because I'm knocking things around. So there's no perfect, is the thing. Like, we are all beautiful fucking hot messes, and it's embracing that we are beautiful hot messes and that we make mistakes. Like, some of the biggest value points you will get out of an experience, out of resistance, is just being willing to step into it. Be willing to talk to people about it. That's why I'm here, right? This is getting this out here that is fucking normal. It is okay to have resistance, to have blocks, to go into meditations and you're literally just met with a black wall that gives you no information. Like, you're like, I want guidance on like the next steps I should be taking. But you're just met with nothing, with the void. In that, you can still embrace that space. And it's a shift in the way you're perceiving It's a shift in the filters you're using and applying to the world. And I have my own narrative that tends to pop up. So around being in my own business, around my intuition, like I've had it pop up in so many different places. And it's like, well, all these other people can do it and have it. They can all do it and have it. I could take the exact same steps and I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna do terrible. It's not gonna work. And that's okay. Like, so many of those other people probably also have that narrative that has popped up and popped off in their life. But I find it interesting that in some way I find myself to be so special, unique, an individual, that I could follow the exact same process that tons of other people have followed and have succeeded with, and that I will be the one who doesn't succeed. Yeah, that's my ego. And that's okay. It's the ego doesn't just show up in boastful ways as far as like I'm the best and like I'm gonna like rock the entire world, or I'm the best lover there is, or the best submissive or dom. The ego shows up in many different ways, and it can also show up very highly as our inner critic. And it's there in a way to try to protect us, but it doesn't mean that we have to follow everything it's saying. So again, you're just getting to notice. Like, notice the things that are coming up. Like, when you think about this feeling of heaviness, like, first, notice the feelings that are coming up. Notice that there's depression, that there's just this heaviness in your chest or your back. Like, maybe your posture has started crawling and rolling forward, whatever that is for you. And then try to notice what the narratives are, but you can notice those without having to identify with them. Right? This is kind of that space of taking the role of the witness. And there is this like three-tiered level that I learned through some of my embodiment training. And it's being the experience, being the experiencer, and then being the witness. And in these levels, that's like when you're in the experience, like you have no delineation between what is happening and you. When you're the experiencer, it's this thing is happening and I'm feeling these things. And then when you're the witness, you just get to notice what's going on. And you can do that with your body sensations. You can do that with your emotions. You can do that with those inner narratives. You can also do that with visualization practices. You can do that with your identities as like a dom or a submissive. So let's say like you aren't interested in being a little, but you have resistance come up to that. Like you have resistance come up saying, I can't be a little. Like it's gonna gross out my dom that I want to explore that, or some other level of insecurity that says it's not okay for you to want to explore that. And I will say, maybe that partner isn't the right person to actually explore that with. And that's another topic for another day as far as opening up relationships, being able to experience things outside of your primary relationship. But in that, like, just get a notice, like there's nothing wrong with exploring any of your identities, with bringing presence to them. Like that is part of my whole philosophy at this point in life, in being very, very self-loving and open, being willing to step up onto different platforms and share content and information with everyone. It comes from my own journey, and then also the research I've done and the other people I've worked with, where this has made profound impacts within their life. Um, inner child work, like sitting down, even if you're not at the point of like going and actively playing with that dom as you're little, because that's scary for you on some level, or you're scared, like you've been hurt with that in the past. Like whatever that was, you can actually take it back a step. Like learn to play with your edge in this space rather than thinking you have to go from 0 to 100. Okay? And one way you can do that, especially like if you're wanting to explore different identities, but there's a discomfort around exploring that identity, is create the space where you can have a conversation with this part of yourself. And you can actually, I recommend, like, if you start doing this, to do it in a quiet space where you can be alone, like to create a level of safety space, you can lock the door. Um, and set up a couple pillows. This is called an aspecting practice, and it is super powerful to be able to step into this. And this is just one way I use aspecting practices with myself and with clients to help explore these realms. But in this instance, we're going to set up two pillows. One pillow is going to be you as you are now, and the other pillow is going to be the identity that you want to play with. So in this instance, we're going to say it's you're little, and you just set them up to where they would be sitting across from each other. To start, you're going to sit on the pillow that represents you as yourself now. And you're going to set the intention that you want to communicate. Start this line of conversation, understand, right, what's here for you with your little. Because maybe your little never actually has to go into play with another partner. Maybe it does want to, but this is just it's that edge, right? It's creating spaces of understanding and acceptance within yourself to be able to play with this part with another partner. So set your intention of what you're wanting to communicate with, what you're wanting to create in this moment, in that space with the part of you that's little. Then just imagine that little is sitting across from you, and you can start describing to yourself. I definitely recommend saying the words out loud to yourself. It can feel a little bit funny talking to yourself, but I recommend it. It's a great practice for actually allowing yourself to hear and receive that information on a whole nother level. You're getting it through auditory input of your voice, but as you speak, the sound actually resonates through each and every cell of your body as well, which can allow you to feel heard, understood, and seen on a whole nother level. So imagine that part of you sitting there. Describe what you see when you see them. So this could be all in your imaginal space, right? Um, or not if you have a hard time connecting with that. But it's what you experience with them. Like maybe you see a little girl or a little boy sitting across from you. Maybe you see a cat or a dog. Like I don't know. Again, there's no rights or wrongs here. It's just whatever comes up for you, and doing that from a space that is open, not judgmental. You're wanting to tap into play and curiosity in this space as well, because you're learning to play with yourself in so many different ways. But it can help you so much with playing in the mud and the muck of it, especially when you're coming up against these resistance and these blocks. So describe what you're seeing. Maybe it's a ball of light, an animal, a child or not child. Maybe it's an adult that looks like a child. Um, maybe it's a plant. Like, again, no judgment. Notice any colors that are there. And then start noticing how you feel about what you're seeing sitting across from you on this other pillow. And just reflect that. Just speak these words out loud. If you really want, if it's helpful for you, set an audio recorder. You can use, there's free apps, I think, on most smartphones at this point, and just say what you're seeing, then what you're feeling about this part of you. Like in this instance, you want to play with your little, but there's some resistance coming up. Like notice what that resistance is. Don't just be all accepting of it, because then you're kind of bypassing part of this process, kind of like we were talking about before, of like you just want to be out of the muck. So like you're like, well, I'm not in the muck anymore. but you're still in the muck. You never actually worked through it or played through it. So you're still there. You're just denying that that part of your reality exists. That's not actually helpful. Again, what you resist persists. Then, yeah, talk through what you're feeling about it, what you're noticing about it, and just go on that until it feels complete. Then ask yourself, does it feel safe for me to take the seat of this identity I want to play with? And if that is a yes, then go ahead and take the seat on the pillow across from you, facing back towards the adult version of you as you are now. If this is a no, do not make it a yes. Please rely on consent in your own nervous system, in your own body, working with your own subconscious layers, and respect that. You can use that no as an opportunity to also get curious and to want to explore why this no exists and what can make it feel safe enough that it is a yes, right? But you're not trying to manipulate your own system into just being a yes. Like, this is a really important key. Consent is a huge thing, not only within our partnered relationships, but within our own being and body, to respect that allows us to build trust, it allows us to build safety. And you can even think about this along the lines of being your own best dom. Like, you want an enthusiastic yes, not the maybe, I don't know, yeah. Like, you want an enthusiastic yes to getting to step into this next piece of your experience. Like, maybe there's a little bit of a fear edge there, and that's okay. But like, you want a yes to proceeding. And if it's not that enthusiastic yes, again, just take it as an opportunity to get curious. So don't take it personally. You're literally working within yourself. But this will help with those relationships outside of you to help open up lines of communication and curiosity there as well. So if it was an enthusiastic yes, then allow yourself to take this seat as the other identity looking back at yourself. And as you do that, one thing I really recommend is, so if you saw another animal or a human, one thing that's been helpful for me in the past is if I could see their body form, so how they were sitting, I would actually put myself into their body form. And it would help me drop into a different set of sensations in my body, usually which were completely unexpected. Um, and from there, just start talking about, again, noticing what you're feeling in your body. What sensations show up when you're this part? Are there any thoughts coming up? Like, just allow it the space to share. If you can create the delineation for yourself, then you can also start asking questions. But that can be a little bit trickier to do. So just allow it the space to share whatever it needs to, what it's wanting, what it's needing, what it wants to experience. And at the end of it, like, make sure that feels, again, complete. You can even ask, is there anything else you want to share? And then move back to your other pillow after that does feel complete. Then reflect back again what you heard, how you now feel about this piece. Notice if it transformed for the way it looks. Sometimes they will do that. Like, it may have shown up as this, like, and I've had this happen, and that's why I'm speaking from my experience on it, as this, like, very scared, like, frail little girl. And, like, now it's this empowered, like, goddess looking woman sitting across from me who's, like, all flared out in cosmic divine shit, and it's quite interesting to get to experience that as well. Um, but there can be empowerment that goes along with it in allowing these pieces of ourselves to be heard and allowing us to, again, play with our muck and resistance. So just sit with it, reflect back what you got to hear, how you feel about this part now. Like, as you're sitting again in the seat as yourself, You can even like ask the part without having to take the seat back again. You can also take it back again if that's helpful for you. But ask the part like, is there something it needs from you? Right? Is there something it wants to experience? Is there a different part of you it wants to live in, a different job it wants to do? And while this can all sound a bit weird, like in my own experience, one thing that really helped me was actually some of my own research and intrigue around the world of DID. Used to be called multiple personality disorder, but I believe it's dissociative identity disorder at this point. Please don't tag me if I get it wrong. Like I'm doing my best with the way they end up changing psychological terms at this point. But as I got into this aspecting work, identity work, parts work, it helped me realize that like we have all these different parts of us that are formed over time, and DID or multiple personality disorder is kind of just the extreme of that, where people don't notice that they have all these different identities, they have all these different masks that they flip between. And so their main identity, the self, whatever it is, may not be conscious of the other identities. And honestly, that's personally kind of what I think happened with the ex partner I mentioned earlier, where he would have his aggressive Dom come up, but he wouldn't remember what happened when he was in that identity, in that role. And I always found it really fascinating because he wasn't drinking in those points in time. Like I've had other partners that like to binge excessively in alcohol consumption. And so it would make sense when they didn't remember actions had taken or situations. But this partner was sober. So it was interesting getting to see that pop up and how much of a disconnection he had to remembering that. It was kind of like he was looking at that through a fog and didn't really have a grasp around what had happened. And I've also been able to witness that a bit in myself, especially when I was very dissociated from different identities. Um, it wasn't integrated. And when it's not integrated, it's this part of ourselves again that we kind of kick off to the shadows, kick to the background, and don't give much attention to. Again, it's something we're resisting. It's something we don't want to identify with. And in that, what we resist persists. I want to keep coming back to that phrase because it is so accurate. It's going to keep showing up in your life the more you resist it, and it's going to amplify. In my own like healing journey, self work paths, one of the biggest things I realized was like the more I resisted working with parts of my identity, like avoiding my healing journey. Um, one, the more sticky and heavy it would end up feeling. But two, weirdly, like the it would like go up in tears for the intensity that things in my life were happening, like trying to show me this message, this part of me that was calling to be worked with. Things would like emotions would get much more heated or intense. Um, just things along that line. So if you're noticing like something, especially if it feels familiar and like it just keeps showing up, and no matter what you do, like you feel like you're hitting a wall with it, it's a very good signal that it's very likely like this block or resistance to wanting to actually go into it and to be with it, to play with it, to communicate, to see, hear, understand, accept, and even love it potentially. And you don't have to do any of those things again. Now, you do want to say if you're noticing it showing up as a pattern, like you're consistently like having like this desire to play with your little show up over and over again, like you keep hearing people around you talk about their experiences with it, or pet play, or wanting to be the aggressive Dom, like explore like your more sadistic side, then there's likely something in it for you to explore. But you're the only person who can decide when the right time is for you to explore that. So, another way to get into this is It's one of my favorite practices when I have the space to do so, is actually allowing yourself to move or to dance with those parts. Now, what you're going to do for this is literally like find music that's calling to you. Sometimes I'll even just pick a random like Pandora list for whatever artist I feel drawn to. But it's something that like allows me to feel connected to that part of me, brings up emotions that that part of me would feel. And then you just slowly start allowing yourself to move and dance as if you were that part. So, in this example of like feeling stuck in the mud, right? Like maybe I start off like squatting down and like I can like allow myself to feel the heaviness of that mud and then just go with it. Like allow your body to move freely. And this can be really hard. Again, no judgments. No judgments at all. Like for me, I'm specifically saying this because dancing was a very hard limit for me for a long time, but it was something I genuinely enjoyed and loved doing. But there is a oh, what is it called? Sorry, there's a book I'm listening to recently called Stealing Fire, and it's all around different types of consciousness and a specific type of conscious embodiment that he calls, I believe, Exodus. It is an extension of ecstasy, but one of the things he relates to being able to tap into Exodus is dance. So it's one of the things with like rave and EDM music and things along those lines where groups of people will all of a sudden like be triggered into these flow states, and you can do the same with yourself. But if you're sitting there judging yourself, even if you're dancing alone in a room, then it's very likely that it's going to be harder for you to tap into the flow state. You're going to feel more restricted, like you shouldn't be moving in certain ways. If this is a hurdle for you, then I recommend playing with it. Our bodies like to move. And if you notice like something feeling stuck, like a lot of the time for me, it'll be my right arm. Like I'll start dancing and it'll just kind of start feeling janky and like I don't know what to do with it. One, I will let it go into like exaggerated movements of that like kind of janky feeling, or I'll sit there and just like randomly shake it. And what that does with our nervous system and like neurologically is it adds a level of novelty because you're not giving it predictable movements in the way it expects to be happening. And it can actually allow kind of this like letting go and release. And then you can try moving with it in the flow again. Again, if you feel like it's stuck, then shake it out, move it around, like jump, swing your body erratically, try to make sure you're not going to hit things. That's why I said, as long as I feel like I have space to dance. Some of my current living situations have not allowed me to feel like I have that space to be in full movement. Um, but really allow your body to move, to be with it, to feel those emotions. Like if you feel like you need to cry while you're dancing, then like let a few tears shed. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Um, Same with screaming or rage, or like you all of a sudden feel like you need to like punch fists. Like do that. But allow yourself to just notice and come back to whatever the sensations are in your body. I use dance regularly as a form of embodiment, and that's I'll have people come up and be like, "Oh, your dancing is amazing." One, I actually get kind of embarrassed by this because I didn't dance for so very long. I was literally the girl at prom who would be standing with a group of people who were all dancing around her, and I would be standing still as a statue because I was so embarrassed about being witnessed or seen or judged in the space of dancing by that point in my life. And it actually took me a long time to move through that hurdle and being able to just let my body move. Like if somebody came up to me and they're like, "Oh, I want you to teach me like how to dance." Like I'm not going to be able to teach them specific movements by any means. Like I can guide them through different things as far as like, okay, like start out with like slower hip rotations, like going in a figure eight or circles. But overall, like my form of dance has nothing to do with any sort of choreographed script of how that should look. It is just a flow state. And that is my goal when I dance, is to just let my body be in whatever state it wants to be. And sometimes that means I stop in the middle of dancing and now I am stretching, or shaking body parts erratically. But again, there's a lot of value in this. It's creating spaces of novelty and allowing you to play in the mud. Like if I'm imagining myself like stuck in the mud, like maybe I imagine myself as like a wild dog out in the jungle or somewhere, right? And I fall into a big mud puddle. Like, how am I gonna actually move myself out of that? But as you're doing it, like allow yourself to feel the sensation of your muscles moving under your skin. Like imagine that there's this mud and this muck on your body, whatever the resistance is. I know a lot of the time when I'm dancing, again, like I'm not controlling the movements I'm doing, but I find it fascinating to look at what movements my body is wanting to do on its own. There will actually be kind of this like pushing sensation off my chest and my heart center. And for me, I know in the past there has been a lot around enmeshed relationships and connections to very unhealthy and toxic dynamics. And that's probably very related with this like burdeny weight feeling that I get on my chest and around my heart. But again, that is my interpretation. It does not have to be yours. It's finding the answers that are right for you. And that's, I will never claim to know all the right answers for you. It's just tools and techniques to help you get fucking curious and into play with what you are exploring. So, is there anything else that comes across that I want to share before we hop off this call? I think that about wraps it up for today. I really want to know, like, what do you want to explore? Like, what techniques out of here, like, resonate for you, even if you adapt them in a way that is uniquely for you that you want to try? Like, please comment that below. Um, if you're interested in working with me as a guide, again, like I'm never going to tell you the rights and wrongs. Like your path is your path, and I'm just here to help guide you with different techniques to really help open communication to your body, to stepping into your leadership and stepping into your fucking like divine ass glow goddess. That is mine as a glow goddess, is see the neon. Um, but into whatever is right for you and the relationships you want to create within yourself and with the partners around you. If you want that support, then go to the About page or down in the description below this video, and you will end up finding links to my social media. You can actually book a free discovery call where we will talk about what you're wanting to move towards, what hurdles you currently see if we are a good match to work together. And if we're not, no offense taken, I will help you find resources that can help you along your path moving forward. So until next time, it was fantastic having you here. Thank you again.